What up, everybody? Scuff D here, and it's time. It has been a while since I've done a deck list video. The last few deck list videos I've been trying to work on have been player requests, and this one is no different. It's the man behind you, it's the man in front of you, it's the man that you can't see coming. Look out, it's Samus is here. He's the Lord of Murder. I've had a few people request a deck list for Samus, so we're going to be doing Samus of the Ruinstorm, the Lord of Murder. I'm going to be showing you the deck list that I've come up with, some of the strengths, weaknesses, thoughts that I've got on it, how I play it, and why I play it that way. But really quick, if you like what you see here at the channel, please hit like, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, spread the news on to other players out there who might be looking for a video about Samus or decks in general. I do want to apologize. I want to apologize for the lack of deck videos. I've been doing card by card videos and podcast recording. Leaves a little less time for me to do deck lists. On top of which, the last few weeks I've also been trying to prep for the World Cup and the USA qualifiers, which are starting, I believe, this week or next. The brackets have not yet been confirmed, so I'm hoping to play for that and get to Team USA and then play in the World Cup and represent Team USA in the World Cup and against all the other teams that have signed up. So that's going to take a little bit of my focus away, but on the plus side, I'll be sharing those games as I do them, as far as I can go. Whether win or lose, you can see what people are playing, how the games went, if I made good choices or not, as well as just kind of covering different aspects of the format and then following up and seeing how teams progress. So that is going to be at least some different content, but I just want you to know that staying busy, and it has been busy. So let's talk about the Lord of Murder. Let's talk about Samus. Samus is he's a trick. He's a trick is what he is. He's a great character. He's actually one of the first demons of chaos that you meet in the Horus Heresy novel series. Chronologically, he shows up like right away in book 1. That's not a spoiler, or at least it shouldn't be a spoiler. He's got a Whispers of Madness card, and then his ability has changed a little bit. It's kind of a siege ability. Initially, when he released, he had high initiative, and then he had this 2 energy, give can attack until your next turn. That was it. There was no the next time deal 2 damage. That part was eliminated. He was just a give can attack. He had high initiative. That's the best thing he had going for him. Whispers of Madness, we're going to talk about the card just momentarily here, but when I say they, every guild changed his ability to become this siege ability, so every other use of his ability, he's giving can't attack. He's then dealing 2 damage every other, so it's a rotation thing, and that really makes him tricky to pilot. But on top of that, not only did that happen, but the Ruinstorm as a faction underwent some changes to several particular cards that really affect all of the Ruinstorm as a whole, and put him in an interesting spot. So primarily Seekers of Slaanesh, these guys were changed. Initially they had the Destroy a Friendly Troop and gain fast this turn, or gain sneak attack, but they had, it was sneak attack but gain fast. And then also you had, Eternal Rivalry, which was changed. This used to be a better card, giving your warlord +2/+0 and Bloodthirst. And then I think there was probably like one other minor change. Most of their troops have remained roughly the same. So those 2 cards, though, were like linchpins, like key cards for the faction. The faction itself, as a Ruinstorm faction, has very few... they have access to the Chaos card pool. That's it. So if they're not playing Ruinstorm cards, the only other cards that they're playing are Chaos cards. So it can be very limiting, and that makes it hard. So I tried to do a deck that didn't just fall into the same old trap and use all the Chaos cards. I tried that with a lot of Cultists, some neutral stuff. I found ultimately, though, that some of that just didn't work, and ultimately some of these strategies with the Cultist cards or the Chaos troops really benefit demons. And if you're playing demons, then why aren't you just playing Ruinstorm demons? And if you're playing Ruinstorm demons, why aren't you playing mutations? Or why aren't you playing frontline and then you're building up for a sealed pact or something stupid? It was very hard to land on a final list for Samus. So I'm going to show you one of the more recent games that I've got for him. I'll take a look at the deck list, talk about the choices that I made, and then we'll talk about a few other games and how Samus ranks up, how the deck lists stack up, and where his pros and cons lie. Okay, so we're going to show off this first game here. This is against a newer warlord, the Anakaris Scoria, right? So right now, that's not a great hand. Elatil will keep, and that's not much better, to be honest with you. Now, with Samus's ability, I find that it's kind of a trap to just use his ability right out the gate and try to rotate in that. I want to use his ability to keep my troops alive if possible. The problem with that is that really leaves Samus not doing anything for most of the game, like maybe using his ability 2 to 4 times, and you have to time it, right? Because once you use that can attack, it's going to take you 2 more turns to use it again. So in this instance here, we've got my cultist down here. If I see, he's gonna be able to kill this guy. If he doesn't, then I could bash with the 3, use my cannot attack, so then I can bash with him again on my next turn and kind of force some action. But that wasn't going to happen this game, so we're going to go the other route. We're going to try to throw down cards, try to get Elatil. We've got that Plague Bear, so if he throws down a troop that we can destroy, that Elatil can get stronger. But with the 3 health, Elatil is very susceptible to anti-stealth, which the Mechanicum has a lot of. So Scoria has got this ability, which it's basically the drill site on demand, which is very nice. I'm going to pick Survivor, because Survivor's always nice. He's going to have those pings. He's going to have his little Mechindrite arms, or his I don't know what you would call it. Abiant? Xanathite Abiant. That's a lot of pings. So having Survivor 2, that's 2 extra health to keep my guy alive. Plague Ridden is gonna do work for me here. That's just it. I get another Chaos Fury back. I lose a Chaos Fury. I get a Chaos Fury. I've used my ability 1 time this game. We're deep into the 7 energy turn. It's the troops that do the work. Samus's ability does not do work for you. If anything, his ability is going to do work for you once, 1 key turn, to keep your opponent from attacking, or whether it's with their warlord or with a troop, from attacking that 1 key troop. Ideally, you want it for like a Plague Toads or a Warp Rift or something stupid early in the game to really irk them, and at the same time gain you some advantage, but that's not guaranteed. It's really hard to do. And he got a good generation. He recognizes the threat of Plague Ridden, gets rid of that. Nothing wrong there. But I've got this that mouthful. Spawn of Chaos. He's kind of a soft win con on his own. I mean, this guy here creates mutations every turn. It's a very solid body. If you have other mutations, or you've got this unrestricted frenzy, you're not going to be hurting at all. So, I mean, we're only off by 6 health, you know? I haven't done anything shocking in this game. There's nothing been crazy. There's no tricks. It's Ruinstorm stuff, right? Like the closest thing I had for a trick was the Chaos Cultist's sorcerer to kind of summon that demon that he destroyed. And I've used my ability 1 time. So this is kind of on par for what I found. And this is a nice little trick that he used using the new Chaos card. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. able to clear the whole board, and he still gets that ping back because that goes back to his hand every turn. So very nicely done. I've got Informant Network though, and I'm able to finish off and actually use my ability a second time. So this entire game, my Samus's ability has been used twice. So as I was saying, that is kind of the par for the course for what I came across with Samus. Nothing flashy, nothing fancy, and using a lot of existing strategies that you already see in the Ruinstorm. The cultist idea that I had initially, to play with cultists, to play with Acleon and Horus Occultists and Cygnus Fanatic, and just kind of build up these chaos cultists, as well as using Ruinstorm, like strong Ruinstorm frontline troops more than anything else, because they've got some good frontline troops. I like Warmonger of Khorne. I like Harriers of Cygnus Prime. I mean, for end game, these guys are really nice. But I found that didn't work because the early game, the troops are so disposable, and where the game is at currently, it just doesn't work. Like, there's just no reward. And then if you've got Sealed Pact is great. Put in play 3 friendly demons that died this game if you have had demons that die. But if you're playing all cultists, you might only have 1 demon. You're only going to get 1, not 3, right? You want to have at least 3 good demons to die to get to that point. So that is not a viable strategy. It's not a solid strategy. So it wasn't working out for me. And I played Cathedral of the Mark to gain more demons. And I thought, well, if I'm gaining more demons, then why aren't I not using Path of Blood? If I'm not using Path of Blood, why am I not using, Pardon the Veil or for Unrestricted Frenzy? And if I'm already doing that, why don't I just go back to using Plague Bearers for mutations, and so on and so forth? And eventually you end up with a list that looks a lot like other Ruinstorm lists. There's a few differences here for certain reasons. Cathedral of the Mark actually works really well for Samus. I want to make that clear right up front. Samus's ability allows you to make the game go a little bit longer to gain value from Cathedral of the Mark. Getting a demon every turn is nice, and that is a great way to give you troop options multiple times in the game. It's very nice, especially if you've got cards like Warp Rift or cards that are, you've got some mutations in hand and you throw down a demon that's got maintenance and then you give them mutations and you're good. It works good. But without a lack of drill sight, because the Ruinstorm cannot play the Mechanicum faction, you really have to time it appropriately. It's not going to work in every game. It's not even going to work. I'll tell you, it's not going to work in half the games. 40% of your games, Cathedral of the Mark will be useful. And when it's useful, it's very useful. But the other 60%, it's not. You're going to want to pass on it to put something else onto play, whether it's a troop or use Samus's ability, whatever it is. War Master's Deceit is much the same way. It's a hard removal option, but because of its cost and how it works, it's not always the option to go for. You destroy an enemy troop, you create a copy of it in your hand. If that troop is a 6 or 7 card troop, you're not going to be able to play it on the turn that you destroy it. So you've telegraphed a play, you've gotten rid of a threat, but if you can't follow this up with a troop of your own, you really haven't done anything except stalled out a turn. That's why these 3-cost troops are so crucial. Demonettes, I've only got 1 copy of in here because really I'm going for having multiple troops on the board. I considered having 2 copies in here, but I really chose the Furies and the Plague Bearers and Cultist Sorcerers for utility or for variety's sake over Demonettes. Having 2 health is just too vulnerable. I want a little more health. That's why I've got Poxbringer in here, and that's why I've got Elatel and Plague Ridden. Plague Ridden comes in handy with those Chaos Furies. I might actually add a second Plague Ridden in here, quite frankly. Your main turn is Plague Toads or Warp Rift. Turn 1, you don't put Plague Toads down, or depending on the Warlord, you put Plague Toad down, and then turn 2, you attack with a Plague Toad and use Samus's ability to give your opponent can't attack. you can't do that turn 2, do it turn, or if you can't do that turn 1, do it turn 2. Depends on your warlord, but that's really how you do it. Or you hit Warp Rift out first turn. So long as you've got demons in your hand, that's going to force your opponent's attention to this card, and this card will gain you value because on your next turn, you can give your ability and use that can't attack feature to buy yourself some time and hopefully reduce the cost of some of these 5 or 6 cost demons. There's not a lot in here though that you'll see, and that's not by, like luck. Like I went with these cheap troops because if I go with cheap troops that become 2s or 1s or 5s that become 4s or 3s, it allows me to still play cards like Cathedral of the Mark and War Master's Deceit and even Artillery Strike, plus plane troops. So that's why those cards will not have their value, their cost reduced, but I can still play them if 3 other cards in my hand have had their cost reduced. It's a different way of thinking, but you're getting the same kind of effect if that works off as you would from a drill site. It's harder to do, by all accounts. That is harder to do, but that is the same payoff. You just have to understand that when you're including that in deck building. So you've got that. Then to go with that, you also have got Samus's ability, his special card, right? His Whispers of Madness, which is take control of an enemy troop with 2 or less health. And I have gone around the fence on this card. This card is this is just a very careful card. It is a hard removal of sorts. As long as you can target that card, it works very well with troops that have either Survivor and 2 health. You've got them low and they've got Survivor 3, but they've got 2 health. You can still steal it with that Whispers of Madness. Or they've got 2 health, but they also happen to be in a drop pod. We're going to take a look at a game that showcases that in just a second. That's really where you can surprise somebody, because I think a lot of people forget how his Whispers of Madness works. A lot of people forget how his Whispers of Madness works because you don't see Samus that often. Let's take a look at this one game here, and then I'll talk and try to explain why you don't see Samus that often, the strengths and weaknesses of this deck. So, this match here, we're going to go ahead and face Raldoron, and hopefully with some of the little spoilers I gave, you might be able to guess what happens in this game. But here we go. We're starting with the Warp Rift. I've only got 1 demon. I'm not too thrilled with what I've got in my hand, but I do have Path of Blood. That's always a great card to have. You only need to have 1 demon to make use of it, and it really can give you some options. And I was expecting him to maybe flank an attack. He didn't. So right off the bat, I'm going to be able to use that Plague Bearer and get a mutation. And because Plague Bearer's cost is reduced, I'm going to be able to play that mutation, which is fantastic. I'm going to make use of it because Plague Bearer is going to be a threat. He has to be a threat. Yeah, I'm going to give him that nice Survivor 2. So unless, he's got hard removal, which he doesn't have Ambassador Melgator, Plague Bearer is just going to keep gaining value for me because this little troop here, that's another free mutation. Thank you very much. I don't have any other demons right now, so again, I'm making the most of that Plague Bearer while I can. And now that I've buffed him up a little bit more, I'm going to give him Ward. He's going to be protected from that hard removal targets. Give Can't Attack, so he's not even going to be able to attack with Raldoron and use some sort of artillery strike or Informant Network to break that Survivor health. Really keeping momentum on my side. We're looking okay. Let's get the Reaver out and let's get to work. We now have another demon troop that we can put mutations on. I can put that Path of Blood on just fine. I've got Wonders of Tizca to heal. Oh, wait a minute. What's his health? I think you know where it's coming up next. And I think this Raldoron player forgot or is not aware of what Whispers of Madness does. So I'll take your 3 health drop pod with your 2 health troop inside that has an awesome ability. I've got him protected with Frontline, and Let's go. I don't even have to do anything else at this point. I think that was pretty much the game. Now, that is a highlight of the best case scenario. Best case scenario for Samus. Make no mistake, that doesn't happen every game. That doesn't happen half the games. I think the majority of the games that I play with Samus, when I use his ability, it's just to take away a troop that my opponent has to waste a card on. The Whispers of Madness is a neat card, but it costs 3, and it's a 2 health troop. It's not a 3 health troop. 2 health troop can be disposed of by so many warlords who just deal 2 damage. And because you are stealing a troop that you have to target, it's not like you're getting a troop that has ward. Like I said, your best bet are troops that have got survivor or who have drop pods, some other form of protection. But that's really it. So it's not for every game, and when you use it, you're really just buying yourself time. Just like his ability is buying yourself time to capitalize with the key cards of either Cathedral of the Mark to allow you for bigger creation, or to throw down a couple of large bodies with mutations on them. That's really it. And that strategy is part of the problem with Samus. So let's talk about it. I'm going to talk about it with one more game. So I'll talk about it with one more game with this Thaddeus Fail deck here. Yeah, that looks good. We'll do what we can. Cathedral of the Mark is a good card to keep. Fail's got troops. He's got a lot of flanking, so I'm not sure how much I'm going to get out of that rift, but we're going to go with it. So the part of the problem with Samus is this. As he is designed currently, he doesn't do anything different that you can't get already out of Kyrus, out of Korvax, or out of Kabanda, the other Ruinstorm warlords. As a matter of fact, they all do it better than him. Iris creates multiple warp rifts through the course of the game. She creates targets that your opponent wants to get rid of, that if they don't, can feed into the late game strategy that this deck that I built is trying to do, right? Like, reduce the cost of a bunch of demons, mutations, blah, 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 blah. Throw out a big heavy or lots of front lines for cheap. Okay, that's an option. That's what Kyrus does. She's got a low health, high pool, but she also has high initiative, so she has that aspect. She just doesn't have this Whispers of Madness, and she's actually got an ability that can deal damage every turn. Alright, Korvax has got the long game going for him in the same degree that Samus tries to do every other turn with his can't attack. Korvax can take better advantage of the Cathedral of the Mark because he's got that built-in heal. He can poison troops, so big nasty troops typically don't stick around very long to gain any other favor, right? So Korvax can do the long game better. Kyrus can do the distraction/reduction game better. Kabanda, whatever you want to call him, can do the aggressive game better. He's got Unstoppable, he's got 3 attack, he has his own weakness built in terms of he's on a counter, but as a result of that, he plays faster cards. He's going to play the same cards that this Samus is playing. Chaos Furies, Toads, aggressive tactics, defensive satellites, maybe informant networks, and then 2, eternal rivalries to really add some punch. But it's not much different. He's going to rely on the same win cons, getting high mutations, getting chosen to stick on the board maybe. At best, a Kabanda could hit to 10 energy, but that's a very tight game, and he's going to heal more than anything, but he's dumping all his resources into doing damage. Samus isn't. Samus is relying on 3 different strategies, all meeting at a mediocre level. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating because he can do things that the other warlords can do, but he can't do anything better. This game here was not won by Samus. This game was won by Chaos doing what Chaos does in any other deck. All three games that I've shown, and I make no mistake, I'm not trash talking Samus. I've played quite a few Samus decks, Samus games. This deck has evolved. I've played almost 60 games. I've got almost a 60%, just over a 60% win rate with Samus. In practice, I understand I don't think he is viable at all in ladder, in Terra, high Terra. You could make Samus work in medium Terra because 2,500 to 3,000, you can encounter anything. Anything is possible. Don't get me wrong, but you're not going to do Samus any differently than you could be playing Ruinstorm and playing Corvax or Kyrus or Kabanda, and that's really a big problem that I have with him. I love Samus as a character. I think he's just iconic. He's not a greater demon in the terms of devoted to one of the four main chaos gods, but his presence in Legion or Horus Heresy is classic. That first reveal with "I am Samus." Samus is here. Look out! Hang on. Let's just do it. Let's just do that.
I am Samus.
Hey, Samus is the man next to you.
You hear the whispers.
Oh, that's really soft. Yeah. He's a great character, but in game he just is pulled in so many different directions. He doesn't do anything great, and that's a problem. So I mean, if I were to take this deck and make it slightly better, in terms of better, I mean like eliminate the variety, right? Eliminate the stuff that I was trying to go with. I could take out the sorcerers. I could put back in demonettes. I could go more plague ridden. Maybe I could put in a couple of the higher cost guys and do a Pact of Fury, a sealed pack deck, right? I could put in Ula. I could put in the Warmongers, Harrier, maybe even, and go sealed pack. But let's be honest. How would that deck be any different than your Corvax decks out there? It wouldn't. Yeah, I could go with more aggressive. I could put in a lot of damage, stick in the Eternal Rivalries, really double down on the mutations. But how is that different than a Kabanda deck? It's not. The only difference is the Warlord. So Samus is in a very tricky spot. I have fun playing him, don't get me wrong. What I don't have fun with is the fact that as I played every single one of these games, aside from a couple games where I really felt I used his ability wisely, and that is hard to do because you have to know what your opponent is playing and what you're saving that can't attack for, or what you're playing and what you're saving that can't attack for to stop your opponent from going into it. That's very hard to do, and that's not every game. And the majority of the games as I played, I just felt like I could be playing any Ruinstorm Warlord and getting the same experience. So that's a problem here, and that's not a problem in terms of the cards of the deck. That's just a fundamental design problem of Samus, and I hope that can get changed. I think if they change his ability, I think if they change Whispers of Madness to be either affect 3-cost troops, three health troops, or even heal them up to full. Or we talked about in the podcast, the Warp Chatter podcast, we talked about maybe if his ability was just straight up, like if he lost the purple card, but he gained that as his ability for 2 energy, any troop that has 1 health, like gain control of it or something, which is an old event warlord ability for Axub, that would make him much more interesting. Much more interesting to face, and you'd have to play very on pins and needles for how you play with Samus. So that's a possibility, but I'm not going to speculate. That's not really what I'm here to do. I'm here to show you the deck, give you my thoughts on it. Again, it's a deck. It plays, it wins, it loses. It wins more than it loses, but ultimately, I just don't feel like it's any different than any other Ruinstorm deck. I could be wrong. If you're playing other cards in your Samus deck that you think are surprises or that you enjoy, are you playing the Plague Blade or the Pox? Was it Pox Blade? what is it? Yeah, Bioblade. If you're using the Bioblade to great effect, let me know. Or do you use the Maniasha Rakshasi? If you use that, I just don't think he can take good use of it. It's too... He doesn't have as much of a long game as Korvax might have to garner that. But Rakshasi can work really good in Korvax or Kyrus, who has a better chance of lowering the cost with creating multiple warp refs in a game. So, yeah, I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. I'd like to hear if you went the same way and you were able to successfully do a full-on cultist build. Have you enjoyed it, or did you go with traditional demons? I don't think a full-out damage tactic build for him works. I think he's going to need troops to win the day, and at the end of the line, the better troops are within the Ruinstorm faction. And you'll be right back to the same circle that I was at, and I hope you don't find that too frustrating. So, I hope this has been informative for you. It may be a little disappointing for you. It may be nothing new. You might have expected that. You might have already been hearing the whispers already, right? Did you hear the whispers?
Hear the whispers.
Yeah. So that's my take on Samus, guys. That is the second or third player request video. I've got more coming. They're going to take some time getting to them, but I'm working through them all and to give my thoughts. As I said, I enjoy Samus. Maybe we'll see him change. He can win, but the feel of the deck doesn't feel anything unique, and that's really my biggest complaint. It's nothing against his ability. His ability isn't great, but how I feel playing him does. And for me, that's important. I want to feel like I'm when I'm playing a warlord, it's unique, or it feels fun, and it does, but it doesn't feel any different. And I need that. So that's it for me, guys. Until next time, keep playing Legions, and we'll talk to you later.